If you have been following immigration news closely, the last few months may have felt exhausting and overwhelming in ways that are difficult to fully describe. Every week seems to bring another warning, another delay, or another reason to worry about green cards, visas, or processing timelines that seem to stretch endlessly into the future. Many of you have written in saying it feels like immigration news is always bad news, that every update brings more restrictions, more scrutiny, and more reasons to be anxious about your status and your future in the United States. And honestly, that feeling makes complete sense after everything families and workers have been through over the past several years of unprecedented uncertainty and policy changes. That is why today's update matters so much, and why we wanted to bring you this information as soon as possible. Because as January 2026 moves forward, there are actually some positive developments happening quietly inside the immigration system that deserve attention and recognition. Not big promises that may or may not materialize, not dramatic announcements designed to generate headlines, but real movement and real progress that many immigrants have been waiting a long time to see. These are the kinds of developments that do not always make the news because they are not controversial or alarming, but they matter enormously to the families and workers whose lives depend on the immigration system functioning properly. In this video, we are going to talk about the good news emerging in U.S. immigration right now, including encouraging signs for green card processing across multiple categories, visa approvals that are moving forward at U.S. embassies and consulates around the world, USCIS operations that are showing signs of stabilization and improvement, and what these updates realistically mean for you and your family as you navigate your own immigration journey. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give it a like so you never miss important updates delivered straight to your smartphone. Now let us get into the video. Welcome to U.S. Immigration Info, your trusted source for accurate, balanced, and comprehensive immigration information that helps you understand what is really happening in the U.S. immigration system. We believe that immigrants deserve honest reporting that includes not just the challenges and obstacles they face, but also the progress and positive developments that are often overlooked in the rush to cover controversial news. Today, we are focusing on the good news because we think you deserve to hear about what is going right, not just what is going wrong. Let us start with the most encouraging area that we have been tracking closely: green card processing. As January 2026 begins, USCIS is showing signs of steadier workflow in several green card categories that have historically been subject to significant delays and unpredictable processing times. While processing is not suddenly fast across the board, and we are not claiming that all problems have been solved, many applicants are reporting more consistent case updates that keep them informed about where their applications stand. They are experiencing fewer unexplained pauses where cases seem to sit in limbo for months with no indication of what was happening. And they are seeing smoother transitions between the various steps of the process, from initial receipt to biometrics to interview scheduling to final decision. For family-based green cards in particular, approvals are continuing at a stable pace that provides reassurance to families who have been waiting and hoping for reunification with their loved ones. Some applicants are seeing their cases move sooner than expected after long periods of silence, receiving interview notices or approval notifications that they had almost given up hope of ever seeing. This matters enormously because over the last few years, unpredictability has been one of the biggest challenges facing immigrants trying to navigate the system. Not knowing whether your case would take 6 months or 2 years, not knowing whether silence meant everything was fine or something had gone wrong, not knowing whether you should be worried or patient. These uncertainties have caused tremendous stress and anxiety for millions of people. In January 2026, the system feels less frozen and more structured in how cases are being handled and processed. When a case is delayed, it is more often because of a clear and understandable reason, such as additional review being conducted, interview scheduling at a field office with limited capacity, or visa availability in preference categories that are subject to annual limits. These are frustrating delays to be sure, but they are at least comprehensible. They make sense within the framework of how immigration processing works. That is different from the unexplained inactivity that characterized some earlier periods when cases seemed to simply disappear into a void with no indication of when or whether they would ever emerge. Marriage-based green card applicants are also seeing more clarity in how their cases are being handled, which is particularly important given the heightened scrutiny that these cases face under current policies. While scrutiny remains high and interviews are thorough and detailed, the system is functioning. Interviews are being scheduled and conducted. Decisions are being issued in reasonable timeframes after interviews conclude. And genuine marriages where couples can demonstrate the legitimacy of their relationships through comprehensive documentation continue to be approved and result in green cards being issued. For couples who have waited months or even years through the application process, these approvals are a powerful reminder that family-based immigration remains a priority under U.S. law despite the increased scrutiny and documentation requirements. The system is not designed to prevent legitimate couples from obtaining immigration benefits. It is designed to verify that relationships are genuine, and couples who can meet that standard are still succeeding in their applications. That is good news that deserves to be recognized and shared. Another positive trend appearing in January 2026 involves USCIS case management and internal operations that are not always visible to applicants, but that significantly affect how cases flow through the system. USCIS has continued expanding digital processing capabilities and improving internal coordination between different offices and systems that handle various stages of immigration applications. While these improvements are not always visible to applicants who are understandably focused on their own cases, they are beginning to show up in observable improvements in case flow and processing consistency. Receipt notices are arriving more consistently after applications are filed, confirming that USCIS has received the application and providing the receipt numbers that applicants need to track their cases online. Biometric scheduling notices are being sent out in more predictable timeframes, allowing applicants to complete this required step without the extended delays that sometimes characterized earlier periods. Interview notices are arriving with adequate advance notice, giving applicants time to prepare and make necessary arrangements to attend their appointments. For many applicants, that consistency reduces anxiety significantly and allows better planning for their lives and their futures. When you know approximately when to expect the next step in your case, you can make decisions about employment, housing, education, and family planning with more confidence. When every step is unpredictable and could take anywhere from weeks to years, planning becomes nearly impossible and stress becomes constant. The increased consistency we are seeing in January 2026 is a meaningful improvement in quality of life for immigrants navigating the system. Employment-based immigration is also showing signs of progress that workers and their employers have been hoping to see. In some employment green card categories, USCIS is processing cases more efficiently when documentation is complete and thorough, and when visa numbers are available under the applicable limits. Workers who have been stuck in temporary status for years, renewing their H-1B visas repeatedly while waiting for their green card priority dates to become current, are finally seeing approvals or at least meaningful movement forward in their cases. This stability allows them to plan their careers, consider job changes or promotions, and build lives in the United States with greater confidence about their long-term future. The efficiency improvements appear to be particularly notable for cases that are well documented from the start. When employers and employees work with experienced immigration professionals to prepare complete and accurate applications, those cases are moving through the system more smoothly than cases that require additional evidence requests or that contain errors that need to be corrected. This is an important reminder that preparation and attention to detail continue to be rewarded in the current processing environment. Visa processing abroad is another area where there is cautiously good news that families have been waiting to hear. U.S. embassies and consulates in many countries around the world are gradually improving their interview scheduling capacity compared to the severely constrained operations that characterized earlier periods. While backlogs still exist and wait times for interview appointments remain longer than anyone would like, January 2026 is seeing more interview slots open for family-based immigrant visas compared to previous months in many locations. For families waiting outside the United States to be reunited with their loved ones in America, this is one of the most hopeful developments we can report, because the visa interview is often the final step before family members can finally travel to the United States and begin their new lives together. Families that have been separated for years, communicating only through video calls and occasional visits, are finally seeing the light at the end of a very long tunnel. Parents are being reunited with children. Spouses are finally able to live together under the same roof. These reunifications represent the human reality behind the statistics and processing numbers. The National Visa Center is also playing a positive role in this improvement in consular processing. Document review timelines, while still careful and thorough, are becoming more predictable than they were during periods of severe backlog and understaffing. Cases that are fully documented with all required forms, civil documents, and financial evidence are moving toward interview scheduling more steadily than before. The NVC is processing cases in a more orderly fashion, and applicants are able to track their progress with greater confidence that their cases are actually moving forward rather than sitting in an endless queue. For many families who have been waiting for years through the various stages of immigrant visa processing, knowing that the process is actually moving, even if it is moving slowly, is a huge relief. The worst feeling in immigration is not knowing whether your case is progressing or whether it has been forgotten or lost somewhere in the system. When you can see your case advancing through stages, when you receive communications indicating what step is next, when you have a sense that there is an end in sight, the waiting becomes more bearable even if it remains frustrating. Another area of positive movement that we are observing in January 2026 is work authorization and related employment benefits that allow immigrants to support themselves and their families while their underlying cases are pending. Some applicants waiting for employment authorization documents are seeing approvals come through more smoothly when their applications are filed correctly, on time, and with complete supporting documentation. While not every case is fast and processing times still vary significantly, depending on the category and service center, the trend suggests that USCIS is prioritizing work authorization to prevent unnecessary employment disruptions for immigrants who are already legally present in the United States and entitled to work. These work authorization improvements matter not just on paper or as statistics, but in the real lives of real families trying to make ends meet and build stable futures. Work authorization allows families to stay financially stable during what are often extended waiting periods for green cards or other immigration benefits. It allows them to maintain housing, pay bills, access health care, and meet all the other financial obligations that are part of daily life. It allows them to continue building their professional careers and contributing to their communities and the American economy. Work authorization also has psychological benefits that should not be underestimated. The ability to work legally provides dignity and purpose. It reduces the stress and anxiety that come from financial uncertainty. It allows immigrants to feel that they are contributing members of society rather than dependents waiting for bureaucratic processes to complete. When work authorization is delayed or denied, the ripple effects extend far beyond the immediate financial impact to affect mental health, family relationships, and overall quality of life. It is also important to talk honestly about what this good news does not mean, because we believe in providing balanced and realistic information rather than false hope or exaggerated optimism. The positive developments we are reporting today do not mean that all backlogs have suddenly disappeared and that every case will be processed quickly. Significant backlogs remain in many categories, and some applicants will continue to face long waits before their cases are resolved. This good news does not mean that every case will be approved or that the scrutiny of applications has decreased. USCIS and consular officers continue to carefully review applications, verify claimed relationships, assess public charge concerns, and apply all applicable legal standards. Cases with deficiencies, inconsistencies, or red flags will still face requests for additional evidence, interviews, and potential denials if requirements are not met. This good news also does not mean that there are no challenges ahead or that immigration has suddenly become easy. Immigration remains a complex, expensive, and time-consuming process that tests the patience and resources of everyone who goes through it. The year 2026 still includes enforcement priorities, enhanced scrutiny of certain applications, and careful review of eligibility for benefits. None of that has changed. But what January 2026 shows is balance in how the immigration system is operating. The system is enforcing rules and ensuring compliance, but it is also functioning to process legitimate applications and approve cases that meet the requirements. It is reviewing cases carefully and thoroughly, but it is also making decisions and moving cases forward rather than letting them languish indefinitely. It is not frozen in paralysis, and it is not collapsing under its own weight. The machine is working, imperfectly and slowly in many cases, but working nonetheless. For immigrants who have lived through years of uncertainty, policy changes, and fears about whether the immigration system would even continue to function for their benefit, that balance itself is genuinely good news, worth recognizing and appreciating. The system continues to offer pathways for those who qualify and who navigate it successfully. For families, this balanced picture means planning with cautious optimism rather than either despair or unrealistic expectations. Staying organized with your documentation, responding quickly and completely to any USCIS request for evidence, keeping your address current, and monitoring for notices, and maintaining valid status throughout the process remain essential practices that significantly improve your chances of success. But there is renewed reason to believe that this effort is paying off, and that cases are actually moving forward toward resolution. For workers navigating employment-based immigration, this means continued opportunity even as requirements remain strict. Employment-based immigration remains a viable pathway for those who qualify, and steady processing helps both businesses that need talented workers and the workers themselves who want to build their careers and lives in America. The employment-based system is functioning, and qualified applicants continue to receive approvals. For students and other non-immigrant visa holders, this means that lawful pathways remain open and accessible for those who qualify. Student visas are still being issued to those accepted at U.S. educational institutions. Work visas are still being approved for those with qualifying job offers. Extensions and changes of status are still being granted when applicants meet the requirements. Legal status continues to be recognized and respected for those who maintain it properly. Another positive sign that we are observing in January 2026 is improved transparency and communication from USCIS and related agencies. While communication is certainly not perfect, and there is always room for improvement, the agencies are providing clearer guidance and more consistent information than during some of the most chaotic and confusing periods in recent years. Policy changes are being announced with more advance notice. Guidance documents are being published to help applicants and practitioners understand requirements. Processing time estimates are being updated more regularly to reflect current reality. That clarity helps reduce the spread of rumors and prevents unnecessary panic based on incomplete or inaccurate information. When agencies communicate clearly about what is happening and what is expected, immigrants and their families can make informed decisions rather than reacting to speculation and fear. This transparency is a quiet but meaningful improvement in how the immigration system operates and serves the people who depend on it. It is also worth noting that immigration systems historically move in cycles, and understanding these patterns can provide helpful perspective during difficult times. After periods of extreme disruption, whether from policy changes, resource constraints, or external events like the pandemic, Stabilization often follows as systems adapt and find new equilibrium. January 2026 appears to be part of that stabilization phase in the current cycle. Not dramatic reform that changes everything overnight, but practical improvement in day-to-day operations that makes the system work better for everyone who interacts with it. For many immigrants, this week's news is a reminder of something important that can be easy to forget when headlines focus relentlessly on problems and challenges. Progress in immigration is often quiet. It does not always come with dramatic headlines or major announcements. It shows up in approvals that finally arrive after months of waiting. It shows up in interview notices that signal the end of a long process is approaching. It shows up in emails and mail notifications that bring relief and joy to families who had almost given up hope. Those quiet moments matter enormously to the people experiencing them, even if they never make the news. Every approval represents a family that can finally be together, a worker who can finally have stability, a student who can finally pursue their education, a dreamer who can finally see a future in the country they call home. These individual victories are the real measure of whether the immigration system is working, and in January 2026, those victories are happening. As we move further into 2026, we will continue tracking whether these positive trends expand, slow down, or shift in response to policy changes, resource allocation, or other factors. Immigration is never static, and conditions can change in either direction. But informed optimism based on observable evidence is better than fear based on rumors and speculation. When there is good news to report, we will report it. When there are challenges to warn you about, we will warn you. Our commitment is to honest, balanced coverage that helps you understand reality rather than react to headlines. If you are waiting on a green card, a visa, or any immigration decision, January 2026 offers something meaningful that has been in short supply during some recent periods. Not guarantees that everything will work out perfectly, because no one can offer such guarantees in immigration, but signs that the system is moving, that cases are being processed, that decisions are being made, and that patience combined with proper preparation is still rewarded with positive outcomes. As this week comes to a close, it is important to pause and reflect on what this moment really represents for the millions of people whose lives are affected by the U.S. immigration system. For many immigrants, progress does not arrive as a single announcement or a headline that everyone discusses. It arrives quietly and personally through an approval notice that finally shows up in your mailbox or your online account, through an interview email that had been delayed for months and that you had almost stopped hoping for, through a work permit that allows your life to keep moving forward while you wait for longer-term benefits to be decided. January 2026 is showing more of those quiet moments of progress and resolution than we have seen in some time, and that is worth recognizing and appreciating even as we remain realistic about the challenges that remain. That does not mean the system is perfect, or that everyone is getting what they need as quickly as they need it. Delays still exist in many categories. Some families are still waiting longer than they had hoped and longer than seems fair or reasonable. Some cases are stuck in review for reasons that are not clear. Immigration remains a process that tests patience in ways that few other life experiences do. But what we are seeing right now in the observable data and in the reports from applicants is balance. Enforcement and careful review are still very much present in how cases are handled, but so is forward movement and progress toward resolution. That balance matters because it means the system is functional rather than paralyzed. For families separated across borders by the immigration process, even small improvements in processing times and interview scheduling can mean the difference between another year of painful waiting and finally being together under the same roof. The difference between a 12-month wait and an 18-month wait might not seem dramatic in abstract terms, but for a parent who has not held their child or a spouse who has not seen their partner, those months matter enormously. For workers and students, steady processing can mean stability in their professional and educational lives. The ability to plan, to accept job offers, to make commitments, to build a future without constant uncertainty about whether their status will be renewed or whether they will have to leave the country. That stability has value beyond what can be easily measured. And for long-time applicants who have felt stuck in an endless waiting game with no end in sight, movement itself is a form of relief even when the destination has not yet been reached. Knowing that your case is progressing, that each step brings you closer to resolution, that there is an end to the process, even if you cannot see exactly when it will come, provides psychological relief that makes the waiting more bearable. If there is one takeaway from these January 2026 updates, it is this: staying informed and prepared still matters as much as ever. You should continue to monitor your case status, respond promptly to any requests from USCIS, maintain current documentation, and work with qualified professionals when your case involves complexity. But perspective matters too. Immigration progress is rarely loud and dramatic. It shows up step by step, case by case, approval by approval. And right now, those steps are moving in the right direction for many people who have been waiting and hoping. We will continue watching the immigration system closely, tracking developments, analyzing trends, and sharing what is actually changing in ways that matter to your life. Not just the headlines that generate attention, but the reality behind those headlines that affects real families and real futures. We believe you deserve accurate information that helps you make good decisions, and we are committed to providing that information consistently and reliably. That is all we have for this bulletin. U.S. Immigration Info Channel provides all necessary visa information and procedures for your U.S. immigration journey. It is important to understand the United States immigration processing steps, visa application requirements, processing times, forms, fees, and more. We will continue to provide all information about U.S. visitor visas, such as B1 and B2, work visas such as L1A, L1B, and H1B, student visas, green cards, immigrant visas, EB1, EB2, EB3, EB4, and EB5, and family immigrant visas. If you have not already, please subscribe to U.S. Immigration Info Channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.